beautiful day. My beginning will be as bright as the sun. Come, won't you come along? And it feels so bright, it's like luck is raining on me. Go and follow your heart, doesn't matter how far. There is so much love to give, something's telling me this time. Baby, baby, now I know. Baby, baby, gotta go. There is so much love to give, something's telling me it's right. When you came to me, oh I knew it's you, yeah, boy. The one to show me now and forever. No, you'll never be alone again. All day, oh yeah, all day. Please stay in my arms, boy. The one to show me if we're together. It don't matter if it rains. All day, oh yeah, all day. As long as you're in my arms, boy. It's you and me on this beautiful day, and it's smiling, holding on to your tight. I guess our hearts cannot lie, and it feels so bright. It's like your love has gotten to me. Go and follow your heart, doesn't matter how far. I can see it now, it's deep in your eyes. No way to define what we feel inside. Baby, baby, now I know. Baby, baby, gotta go. There is so much love to give, something's telling me it's right. When you came to me, oh I knew it's you, yeah, boy. The one to show me now and forever. No, you'll never be alone again. All day, oh yeah, all day. Please stay in my arms, boy. The one to show me if we're together. It don't matter if it rains. All day, oh yeah, all day. As long as you're in my arms, boy. Don't worry of tomorrow, but now you're everything in my day. I love the way you like a song, you know my heart. Cause you know me, know my heart. You're everything in my day. I love the way you know my heart. Yeah, alright. The one to show me now and forever. No, you'll never be alone. All day, oh yeah, all day. I can let you know that you're my boy. The one to show me if we're together. It don't matter if it rains. I will love you every day. As long as you're in my arms, boy. The one to show me now and forever. No, you'll never be alone again. All day, oh yeah, all day. Please stay in my arms, boy. The one to show me if we're together. It don't matter if it rains. All day, oh yeah, all day. As long as you're in my arms, boy.
O Marie, whakalofa atu. Welcome to the Daily Examiner. My name is Ali Tiki Lei. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all here to the Sunday night special. Of course, we know what's happening tomorrow. Before we get into that, I want to bring in my co-host for today is Mel Taylor. Whakalofa atu, Mel Taylor. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Oh, good. So exciting night. Let's carry on. Let's move into our next person, who is Liao Tilsley from Tangaroa Sao. Liao, how are you?
Talofa. Lovely to see you guys.
Awesome. So before we bring in our next three guests, we are very excited to have them. Very powerful guests indeed. This is a live event, so if you have questions, if you want to bring anything up, please bring it up, no problem. If we can spot it, we'll spot it. We are having a little bit of tech difficulties already, but if we can see any sort of questions, we want to bring them up, because this is a talanoa where you also put in and we can have a discussion about things. So, without further ado, let us bring in our first of our guests. This is Petya from Mad Messenger. Petya, how are you?
Kia ora te whānau, maruru sui fō mō malangi mama, talofa lava, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show tonight, guys. Appreciate it, thank you.
Oh, awesome. And would you like to say anything about the organisation that you're coming to? I believe it's Mad Messenger.
Mad Messenger, yes. Mad Messenger was pretty much a name, kind of like a stage name in terms of me being an evangelist in different churches. So Mad is simply an acronym, which stands for music, art, drama and dance, and so I use all these different mediums to share the gospel and to share a positive message wherever I go. And so that's pretty much what I do in terms of the church scenes, but also I'm a co-founder of two organizations, AOK and .NZ, which stands for Acts of Kindness, which does a lot of training in terms of suicide prevention up and down the motu, up and down the country, but also 1 degree workshops where I run programs in the schools and high schools and intermediate tertiary education in terms of leadership training and so forth, and cultural roots. So that's pretty much what I do. Also.
Oh, awesome! Oh, well done. Thank you so much. And again, that real powerful community work put in there. Next up, we have Steve Oliver, the man. Steve, how are you today? Yeah, let me just put you there. Unmute you.
Hey, right.
Oh, there we go. See, we have to have a little bit of tech issues. Always some tech issues. Let me bring in, we'll get Stephen back with us. In the meantime, let's have a chat with Jasprit Uparai. Jasprit, how are you?
Hi, Elliot. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. And Jasprit, I believe you are with that organization, Voices for Freedom. Is that correct?
I am the coordinator in the Invercargill area. And I found them a year ago, thankfully, and they were a lifesaver. Someone who was asking the questions that, as I'm also a wife and mom. So someone who's questioning the science finally. Yeah. So very grateful to have found them, and they have afforded me a platform to speak on certain issues. And I'm sure some of those we'll be discussing tonight. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, wonderful. So, we're here now. Hopefully, look, there we go. We might have someone coming in. Steve, he's coming back in. There we go.
Every time,
there you go.
Every time, bro.
Every time. Awesome. Good to see you.
Time, brother.
Awesome. Now, Steve, of course, I don't think you need any introduction. Of course, you had the big gym, that you were the first, in a sense, to be attacked by the government in a real legislation-style way. I'm not going to push for any sort of update at this stage, but would you tell us a little bit about who that group that you are a part of and what's been happening there?
Yeah, we just, Don Oliver's my father. I'm just carrying on his, the gyms, and we've just evolved it into a bit more of a holistic approach with martial arts, weights, and diet. We do the full picture after generations of acquiring all this knowledge. We've put that out to about 3 or 4 Oliver MMAs around the country, and we oversee around 18 teams called New Zealand Top Team nationally. So we've got a great network of people working, and it's just all about community, just about growing young wayward kids into leaders and good humans.
Awesome. So that, I mean, look, we've got a huge amount of expertise and experience here. We've got great people who are working in the community currently. So that's actually something which we really do need to talk. And if I'm not wrong, we've all got children. Would that be fair?
Yep.
Yeah.
And grandchildren. Sorry, had to add that in.
And grandchildren. Of course. Very good. All right. So, what we want to start off with is first, what is happening tomorrow? And I know that some of our audience don't fully know what's happening here. Now, Jaspreet, I'd like to perhaps start with you because I know that you're very succinct and into that scientific or the deadline sort of behavior. What's happening tomorrow? What's going to happen?
We are tomorrow starting with the official rollout of the pediatric version of the COVID-19 vaccine. This is now for children under the ages of 12, and that is the one in which now my kids fall into, one of mine, yeah. So that starts tomorrow officially.
Right. So of course we've had the vaccinations encouraged for the adults, then it became mandatory, then it went into the 12 years old, and so it went to that child part, and then the children were able to get away with just being vaccinated or being coerced / bribed / peer pressured into vaccination without even the families being involved. And of course we've had high schools giving out house points, again with $50 vouchers. So there's been a whole lot of issues around that concern. Also, I suppose some of our concerns could actually be around the fact that there seemed to be a straight target of Māori and Pacific children first. That was actually quite interesting to see that develop. Now, of course, tomorrow we will have the 5 to 11-year-old children being put in. I know this is probably going to see this way, but I just want to see if I can get a round robin whether you are supporting your children getting vaccinated or not, or anything outside of that, and perhaps just a couple of points, your main points as to why. So, Liao, if we could just start with you there, let's see what you reckon.
So the experimental vaccination is not finished until 2023. So this is what we will be putting into our children. So if you agree to that, then I suppose it's on you. It's 2023 when this is at least. I mean, we don't even know what's in the ingredients. So obviously, I do not agree with our children getting vaccinated. Our teenagers are already suffering from it, and being associated with the New Zealand Health Forum, the adverse reactions have been greatly increased with young men, young male teenagers, and I have 3 of them. So I'm quite adamant that this is not going to be a good rollout for our children from 5 to 11.
Right. No, thank you for that. Mel, your thoughts?
They haven't really been at risk anyway from COVID, if you look at the stats. It's, they've been elderly or whatever, but the kids haven't really been a major factor in it all. Like Liao says, it's not tried and tested fully. The problem is that they really pushed it in the schools, and there was a lot of peer pressure on teenagers going to schools. And then you've got, everyone will justify their stance. So if you've got those that have been vaccinated, they'll justify it, and those that haven't will justify it. But it's getting harder and harder. I've heard of kids that are going to youth group, they're the only one not vaccinated, so they can't go out to certain places, and they feel stink. There's heaps of pressure. It's a real tough call for parents, because you're going to get kids that think it's the right thing. They think their parents aren't doing the right thing. It's a lot of pressure. My son is 11. It's an absolute no-go. I've got an older daughter that has had it, and she had a pretty severe adverse reaction. So yeah, a lot going on.
All right.
It's not good. It's the coercion that really concerns me that'll go on.
No, thank you very much for that. Petya, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm similar to what Liao was saying. I don't understand the rationale as to why the government is pushing for vaccinations for our young ones, five to 11. It's just like you're saying, it's still a clinical trial, 2023. They've talked about short term um, discussions or impacts, but there's also long term, and so I don't know the long term effects. You're talking about adverse effects in terms of those teenagers who've got the vaccination. You're talking about myocarditis. You're talking about pericarditis, and then you're looking at all these adverse effects, and now they're wanting to vaccinate our young ones, from 5 to 11. So it doesn't make sense. They've put it on their website as well, Unite Against COVID, that it's mild symptoms. It's a really severe reactions or deaths to our young ones, and so it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense, and I'm totally opposing that.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand. Yeah.
All right, no, thank you very much for that. Just Bleat.
I live in a twilight zone, Elliot, with parents in India. My dad is 72. He has had open heart surgery in 2017. He's a retired lieutenant colonel. He contracted COVID in December, 15, 16 December, after a military reunion of his battalion. And he was sent home with paracetamol, and mum was given an oximeter, a thermometer, a more accurate one. And he was called over the phone every 3 hours from the military hospital. By 25th, he was sending me pictures of his pride and joy, his garden. This is ridiculous. The sort of overreaction we have here is utterly ridiculous. My brother, who's now slated, waiting for his next promotion, he's a colonel in the Indian Army. He's had this exact same thing. He's had COVID just last week from a war game. Again, they had, I think, 300 odd officers in one room. 2 days of cough and cold, and he's back. He's back at work today. There was a 5-day stand down for him. Nothing else, and he's back at work. What are we doing here? This is, if I had the polio vaccine thrice in a year and I could still get it and give it, I'd be asking some serious questions. I don't see this as any different.
Absolutely. No, fair enough, fair enough. Thank you so much for that. Steve, what are your thoughts? Do you support the kids, the 5 to 11-year-olds being vaccinated, and what are your justifications for that? Oh, he's muted.
I don't support this thing at all. It is an experiment. You know, I've got plenty of kids. We've got 8 kids all up. I've got 3 older kids out of the house, and we've got 5 kids at home, from anywhere from 33 right down to our youngest is about 16 months. So, you know, I just don't approve this at all. I mean, I have heard that which makes sense, is that when they are when the vaccine is in the emergency status, they're not able to be prosecuted. They're not able to be held liable for any injury. But as soon as that vaccine has been approved, they're able to be prosecuted. Okay, but as soon as they approve it for the kids again, that's the key. As soon as they approve it for kids, all of a sudden they're exempt again. This is just trying to get off the hook. That's what it is, and they're willing to throw our kids under the bus to do it. You know, it's disgusting. This is big business, and we're just getting played. You know, we're just getting played. We're just getting herded into selling their product and making them serious amount of money. And the thing is, the deeper into this we get, the more power they get, the more bribes they can apply. The thicker it gets. So we've got to stand up and really say no, especially now. You know, I mean, it's our kids' lives at stake. You know, it really is.
Yep. Yeah, well said. Well said. I absolutely agree with all of you. I think that we're in a real experimental stage. I think it's quite extraordinary that they seem to. I don't know whether it's an accident or happenstance, or if it's an incremental phase that they'll go after our children. Because you look at, again, adults, then not mandated, then mandated, then it's children who are school age, most school age children, and then it's basically cancelling the parents if the parents want to turn up to school. Again, it's that mandating aspect, as well as the bribery, coercion aspect, and knowledge of peer pressure. Now, of course, or tomorrow, it'll be the 5 to 11-year-olds, and we know that I think we all can expect that this will be mandated soon enough. I find it quite extraordinary. Both of my kids are within that that 5 to 11 phase. And I can say with a hand on heart that both myself and my wife are absolutely diametrically opposed to it. In fact, we're willing to suffer a great deal to not have them be vaccinated. So I just also wanted to bring up some of the comments that have been brought up. Sean, discussing stupidity, innocent are going to be injured, some are going to lose their lives. I think this is actually something which needs to be discussed. I don't understand why this is not being brought up, and I think we're going to have a little quick chat about this sort of thing as well. Ronnie Banks, sorry Ronnie, it's very, very long. I do apologise, but he's talking about he whakaputunga. That's absolutely fine. Michael D'Angelo's coming out there. Ain't no outlawed Christians in this group. Very good. So we've got a whole bunch of comments in there. Thank you so much for that. Angela Midse Pfizer community data sheet has said that the safety and efficacy for under 12-year-olds has not been established. Now, let's sit on that. Now, Liao, I'm going to jump, see if I can ask you a question here. Now, I know that you're also connected to the Health Forum New Zealand. So can you give us anything around this? How risky is it for the kids who are going to get COVID or going to get vaccine? Can you help us out here in terms of that?
Well, if we go with what has happened with the teenagers, the heart and blood clot are going to be the two main issues that will come from this. So our younger children, especially males, have a very high percentage. Like, if you can think about this, they don't want you to exercise at least 2 weeks, low sort of exercise after you've gotten your vaccine. If you can try and subdue a child for 1 day or for 5 minutes, then good luck to that, because they are very active, and so you will have a lot of reactions from it. So very dangerous, and we're going to pay dearly for this. It's hard to say this, but this is where it's heading. Sorry if I'm cutting.
Right. No, that's okay. Does anyone else have any sort of input into that in terms of the risks to children or to vaccine or anything like that? Just Preet, you look like you want to jump in there.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I have actually put a comment in the private chat. Elliot, I'm not able to. I don't know if you're able to see that. Are you able to bring that up? That's a CDC presentation.
Oi. Gosh, you're stretching my technical ability here. Well done.
I'm sure you'll rise to the challenge.
No problem. We 2 6 here. Let's have a look.
Where's this from?
This is from the CDC, and this was a presentation. I'll shuffle my screen. And this is August 30th, 2021. And this is a presentation to CDC about myocarditis following COVID-19 vaccination, updates from the VAERS. And I have put a link to that. Yes, thank you. If you could go down to slide 19 here, Elliot, on this one. Slide 19. Because that one deals with Pfizer.
All right, we're at 19 here.
A bit further down. Summary? It is... Have they gone through this? They keep juggling the slide numbers. My apologies. Elliot, if you could go to slide 8, please. They have changed it again.
No.
Slide 8. And it is telling you how many times higher is the observed versus the expected risk of myocarditis. They've only done this for over 12s. But yeah, look at this. Now this is males. If you look at the 12 to 15-year-olds, males, so that's the right-hand side of the column, they expected 1 to 5 cases of myocarditis. They observed 116. 116 instead of 5.
Wow. That is an incredible ratio imbalance.
For certain personal reasons, my son, who's 4 now, he had an adverse event to DTaP shots, the 6 weeks ones, and we were told to say our goodbyes. By the time we got him to ER, he was 45 degrees. And that's a time where when you nearly lose a child, you start looking. And what I've observed for this over the last 4 years before the COVID thing came along, the adverse event ratio over the last 40 years has been 70-30, skewed unfavorably towards males. This just proves that. And you can see the reds are in mostly as if you look at over the 50 to 64-year-olds, the second last row, males, they expected 2 to 19, they only had 5. When you go up to the 12 to 15-year-olds, 116. It is the younger people who are going to be the worst hit. We don't have the data yet from VAERS for kids below this, but you can see how vast a difference is it between females and males. So expecting 3 in females, getting 4 times as much, 12 in the 12 to 15-year-olds. Expecting 5 in males and getting 23 times as much. It
That's
is shocking.
incredible.
That's shocking. And this is a vaccine which has already gone through this age group. Far
So
more
I ha-
males are going to suffer adverse events. And I have no reason to disbelieve that when it'll be kids, in my kids, I have a daughter who's fully vaccinated and a son who didn't get anything past his 15 months. I'm the mom who also got my daughter out of pocket chickenpox shots because the doctor recommended it. So you trust science until science proves to you it's not worthy of your trust. And I was never given an answer about what happened and what not. And there it is in front of us. It is absolutely shocking. 18 to 24-year-olds, there were supposed to be 7 cases of myocarditis in males. There's 134. It's nearly 20 times. 7 twos are 14. So yeah, nearly 20 times as much. This is what we consider safe.
And this is from the CDC, isn't it?
This is the CDC presentation. And again, this presentation abbreviated. There was the one that I had originally seen was a 32 slide, and I was on slide 19. That's why I'm sorry I confused you. But this is it. It's just as damning.
I think that's extraordinary, and it does also go to what I believe Liao was saying, which was if a 5 to 11-year-old does have it, and we do know that there's a heart rate element to the adverse reactions, what are you going to do? Are you going to basically tell a 5 to 11-year-old child that for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you are not to do any physical exercise, you are not to do something that's going to raise your heart rate up to some degree?
The cure is worse than the disease. I have a 72-year-old dad who's had Delta in India after open heart surgery 4 years ago, who within a week was up and fine. I have a brother who's just had a 5-day stand down. He felt nothing. They told him he had one because all army officials are tested once a week and after the war games, and he's fine. And this is what we are asking them to risk? Myocarditis. There are studies on this from the Mayo College that despite all the advances in science over the last 50 years, the rate of mortality of myocarditis has not improved. In 5 years, it has a 50% mortality rate. The heart is a muscle that does not regenerate. What you have a disease from which 99.8% people are going to survive just fine. Are you asking them to risk something which in 5 years would kill 50% of those it has afflicted?
Yes,
crazy.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Looks like Steve, did you have something to put in there?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with Liz Lambert. She's been jumping on board and helping us put a bit of clarity around what's going on with with what's going on with the fines and stuff. And I got a really good phone call from her yesterday after that win from Supreme Court against Biden's vaccine mandates in the States. And, she's very excited, and that's going to have big implications over here. So we just look into the future and hopefully we see a bit of daylight, hopefully we get a bit of a reprieve on this madness, because it is. The numbers are out now. It's total absolute blindness, and it's a willingness to be blind. I don't understand why, the community en masse is just deciding to go along with this madness. Our kids' lives are at stake.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've got no answers.
Yep, no, I hear you. Yep, I absolutely hear you. Yep.
Wanting to support
Sorry, Mel,
their
you wanted to put in there?
family. Sorry. Yeah, no, just fear. I reckon that's a big tactic. And the thought of the government pushing fear onto our kids is revolting. There's already been an uprising in homeschooling, naturally. And if this goes ahead and they start pushing it in the schools, the school system's already beginning to collapse from the mandates. It's just going to continue to go downhill.
Oh, well said. Well said. Petya, did you have something to say in there?
Yeah, no, it's just some crazy stats. Jaspreet, I think what's most alarming, because I just read an article today, and they're blaming the myocarditis because of COVID. COVID. It's no longer the vaccinations. It's COVID, and it's funny how they've changed their tune. It was because of the vaccinations, but now all of a sudden it's like no, it's not because of the vaccinations. It's because people are getting COVID. That's why they're getting these heart inflammation and so forth. And so it's crazy. The stats prove it. And you're right. They're not hiding it anymore. It's out there for people to read. And I agree with what Steve was saying. I don't understand why people are blind to what's happening. It's crazy. It's just ludicrous.
No, well said. So there has been, so let's segue on that a little bit. There has, of course, it was started by the clinical psychologist from Belgium, and that was in August 2020 when he came up with that theory on mass formation psychosis. Then, of course, that has been popularized from Joe Rogan and the Robert Malone interview. So, of course, went hardcore in terms of mass formation psychosis, which also says that there are four different psychological conditions that can be found within the community. And if that's where you get things like apartheid, the Nazi Germany regime sort of controlling elements, and also now taking a hold of the people who are fermented in fear from COVID, whether it's from government messaging or media or whatever. Do you guys, in terms of many of we have seen TikToks and we've seen other videos where parents are basically jumping in, and some of them are saying, "Oh, I can't wait to Pfizer up my child." They're saying this, and it seems odd. Are you seeing or do you subscribe to that theory? What do you think's happening within the New Zealand population, indeed the Western population, in terms of this? What do you think there? Mel, what do you think?
I think when you've got a one-track mainstream media and a one-track government, if people aren't looking outside of the blinkers, that's all the narrative they're hearing. So I guess it's about encouraging people to actually look around and look at other information. Don't just trust the narrative. Certainly don't trust the government narrative. I think that's where a lot of people are being blinded.
Yep, no, fair enough. Does anyone else want to put in with that little mass formation one?
Yeah, so just like my son was affected by a vaccine that I gave him when he was 4 months old, so about 20 years ago. And when we had a study into what was in these vaccines, I freaked out and went, which means we have been poisoning our children for 20 years, So the reality is, why are we putting stuff into our perfectly healthy children who have been given a God-given immunity system all these years? And so the idea is it's another vaccine, or an immunization is what they called it. In one of the Dunedin or Otago papers, they've called it immunization. So we're adding something else. We've been doing it for a long time. This isn't just, oh my gosh, we've got this new vaccine that everyone's afraid of. No, we've been vaccinating our children for a very long time. So if you want to get people out of this, things are going to have to happen because a lot of the effects haven't been made public. We're talking about vaccines from a long time ago, and if they were shut down. And so now people will just go ahead and go, oh, well, my children survived and they're fine now. We're going to give them the next one. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Steve, you sort of look like you're moving around there. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, there was a whole lot of emails released from the head guy, Fauci, all his emails. And it looked like his passion in life, if you study the emails, is either gain of function, or he's got a real perversion around experiments to heighten the fear response. He was doing experiments with monkeys and showing them an image of a spider, and they were shrugging it off. And then after a couple of months of medication, they were, he'd show them the same image, and they'd just about have a heart attack in fear. And I wouldn't put it past these guys to put something, tweak it so that it heightens the human fear response, and honestly, people freaking out, and the hysteria around a virus that you have no physical evidence of at all. I don't see anyone, like you saw the videos back in the day where they were twitching and falling over and dying in bus stops, and I want to see someone cough. Everyone's running around the whole mall. Whole shopping mall's got a mask on, and no, I can't hear one person cough. What are we doing? It's but I wouldn't put it past them, mate. I would honestly like to potentially tweak it so that as soon as you see us isolate, and everyone's rushing off into their lounge and pulling the curtains. It seems a real hysterical. A lot of people, a lot of grown men running around, hysterical about something that's not even. You turn the TV off, the whole thing disappears, mate.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Well said. And that does bring up a thing, and I would like to get anything from anyone to discuss this. Is again this messaging by media. Now, again, for years, we like to joke about the media is just the voice of the government. We like to joke about that, but has it been? Can we trust the media? Now, I know that there's an obvious way of saying, nah, mate, but digging beneath that, what do you think's actually going on within the media itself? Can we trust anything that they say, or what are your thoughts in terms of the media? Because the fact is, the vast majority of New Zealanders still will just sit there and listen to One News, News Hub, Spin-Off, Newsroom, whatever they might have. What are your thoughts on the media itself? Let's see. Well, let's start with Petya.
That's a good question, Elliot. It's in terms of the media, in terms of mass formation as well. My concern really in terms of our kids, besides the vaccination, is the thinking. Our in terms of critical thinking for our kids, and I feel like we're grooming a bunch of kids who are going to be conformists. In terms of the media, when you have the government and the Prime Minister saying, "Hey, we are the one source of truth," anything outside what we say is misinformation, and when you have adults saying, "Oh, yes, it's true," it's alarming, because now you're having kids who maybe are thinking, "Oh, yes, it's who are not going to inquire, not going to question things, and not going to critically think." There's going to be no other alternatives of solving problems and so forth. And so when you got the media saying this is the truth and the one narrative, it's alarming, because now what they're actually saying to us as a nation is, don't think, you just do what we say. And if you do think and you do get out of line and you do question things, then you don't comply, then there's going to be punishment. You're going to be punished for thinking and for and for speaking out. And so the media has a lot to it's responsible for a lot of the things that are happening. And so I would just right now, I don't trust the media at all, the mainstream media at all, team.
Yeah.
Yep. No, fair enough. Liao, you look like you want to say something there.
I do, I just. Well, our program in itself got cancelled last year from speaking a little bit of truth, well, actually the truth. And so I haven't seen much evidence of, I've seen maybe a few articles that have just maybe started to bring out a little bit of what's happening. But that is nothing in comparison to what is actually happening. But, to be honest, I think people would be really shocked if it was uncovered all of a sudden. Like, people would be just, I don't even know what kind of reaction they would get if they actually saw what was happening right now. Just people are learning a little bit of information, having those intimate conversations with people are starting to wake up. Imagine if it was the media was brought to account and everything was exposed. I don't even know how people would react.
No, absolutely well said. Steve, I do want to make a mention that when the marches that were done by Freedoms and Rights Coalition, there was a strong push by the media across the board, mainstream media, to sort of suggest that there was threats of violence by the marchers and protesters within the Newmarket. Now, those of us who know those who organised the protests and know the protests themselves and have been covering the protests in a proper way have seen absolutely none of that. But still, you had One News, you had NZ Herald, who were reporting that the Newmarket owners were fearful, they were scared, they were worried about the protesters who were going down Newmarket Cafe. What are your thoughts about that sort of reporting? And indeed yourself, what do you think about the media currently that we have?
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing is an understatement. I mean, but it's, it's consistent. I mean, right through, a lot of regimes, the media has been crucial in the indoctrination of the nation and the mass psychosis, if you will, of the nation. And it's no different right now. And I mean, we've just had 70 years to fine tune it. It's pretty impressive, I'll be honest, but I don't know how they sleep at night. I mean, you see the basics around, 30,000 strong march, and they're coming out with either 3,000 people. It's a very small group of people that are unhappy, and it's an absolute monster, you know what I mean? And people are absolutely. But I tell you what, there's been never have I seen any aggression at one of those freedom marches. I've been to most of them. I've been to 99% of them. And it's a great atmosphere. It's like a camping ground in the 90s, man. It's a great, it's a hot day. People are sharing sunscreen. It's just patriotic people that care about their kids. That's it. There's no heat. There's no animosity to anything. I mean, a great quote is, I don't fight because I hate what's in front of me. I fight because I love what stands behind me. And that's it. We love our families. And we're standing in the gap. That's all we're trying to do, And the media, what the real disappointing thing with the media is that they, that they're suppressing the truth. It's obvious that they're suppressing the truth. There's injuries out there. There's masses of vaccine injuries out there, and it's just radio silence. And another one is a good quote that says, I won't remember the abuse from my enemies. What I'll remember is the silence of my friends. And the silence of the media is deafening. In a country that needs the media, we're being thrown under the bus, and it's all for a paycheck.
Yep, well said. Well said. Just Brent, what do you think there? Because I think you've also got some experience from some of the things that have occurred in India.
Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent, as I said, I'm a Kiwi now. Had to give up Indian citizenship in 2015 when we got New Zealand. But for 30 years of my life, I lived in India, and you are brought up with a very healthy skepticism for whatever the government does, despite my own parents being in the army. Now, in another life, I was a mortgage underwriter, and the 5 profiles we were told to lend to with extreme caution. And this is written material that was in a underwriter's textbook that I was tested upon before given underwriting authority were police, press, politician, property dealer, pawnbroker. In India, we don't trust police, press, politician. If I was ever given a loan from them, I had to go back 10 years. I would try credit checks with different versions of their name, once with the middle name, once without. Take the dad as a co-borrower, cross-link as many properties as I could. And I came to New Zealand, I was like, what? It is just, how can you trust the police, press, politicians that implicitly? Because I was told to go around and do the exact opposite. Never do anything the government wants you, never touch anything with a barge pole. And last year, November 2020, in a local playgroup here in Tuatapere, where I was, a group of us were sitting together, mums, and we were prepping for a drive-in movie that we were going to do as a fundraiser for the playgroup. And, we'd done the work and were sitting with a couple of wines, and one of the ladies, she spoke to me. Because that time they were just making noises about the approval. And I was like, there's 58 questions to be answered. That time no one was thinking, I'm talking 14 months ago, that something would be a thing. And I was like, 58 questions, what are these guys doing? And she says, this lady says to me, she says, Jaspreet, seriously, you think the government would harm us? I'm like, yes, I would. You think they won't? She says, you know what? She says, I'm just going to enjoy my wine because if I think like the way you do, she said, I don't know how you sleep. I said, that's fine. I don't want to discuss it. You asked me, I'm answering it. But I said, I am not going to shy away from uncomfortable topics because that's what a lot of people are doing, because it's that cognitive dissonance. Once you reach that stage where you start thinking that, oh, my government is not taking care of my best interests, how much more will you uncover that might bring down this entire facade of a life you have around me, if all might just come crumbling down on you? And many people would not be able to deal with it. So the best thing is to just keep avoiding it. And like the media, over just before the elections, and I remember that's when the narrative got really polarized. The vaccine wasn't on the horizon, but we had a whole lot of divisive, ethnicities being divided, and the narrative was constantly being done, doing this for the Maori, and this has not been done, and equity and injustice. And I was speaking to a couple of my Maori mates. I said, when a government starts pandering to one community, there's a problem there. And she says, no, it's about equity and the marae roofs need to be done and this and that. And I was like, mate, I come from a place where politicians always divided us. I'm a Sikh, a very small minority in India. They pit Sikhs against Hindus, Muslims against Christians, because for any government, the ultimate nightmare would be a united population. Divide and rule always works. And my mate didn't get it what I was saying then. She thought I was being offensive, and I was not. But a year and a half later, she's now talking to me, and she's like, I can't go to my marae. I'm like, that was what I was trying to tell you about then. This is what happens. And I've seen it. I have lived through this. All I've done is I've swapped religion-based discrimination for race-based. I thought that was extremely dangerous, and I could see that leading into the vaccine narrative then. Even now, yesterday, you see it is extremely dangerous. What's the name of the gentleman, Mr. Hunt? He is the head of the Human Rights Commission. And the CEO has resigned. And what is he talking about? He says, I see this as a right time to bring in two CEOs to finally give life to the treaty. And I'm like, right, you have Northland locked down for 5 months, and you're talking where a group of people have not been given bodily autonomy, and you're suddenly talking about equity? This doesn't add up. But that's what the media does. That's what being done over this. Or maybe, I still, as an outsider, and what I have seen in India, I look at all this with a very sinking sense of deja vu, that I've been here before.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah, very well said. And I think that it's quite interesting, because from that, I think a lot of the people themselves are getting quite angry. I know that over the last 3 months, it's been less about simmering tensions, frustrations, and anxiety, and it seems to have gone into just naked anger, just straight anger. So when you look at the communication cycles, I think that this government has been the most divisive that I would argue we've ever had in the history. And I would even include Muldoon and anyone else in that. I think that this is the most divisive government we've ever had. And I think it's just quite fascinating how they're engaging in that. All right, so children are in the gun. Well, what is your position as to where Jacinda is at this? Because I know that there can be polarizing and a wide spectrum, because it is actually in terms of the leadership of the country that is driving this. Whether or not the CDC, the UN, whatever, in terms of the New Zealand context, it is our leadership who is pushing this. So in terms of that, do you think that it is possible, likely? What are your thoughts around our current leadership? And I do mean, obviously, Jacinda and the Labour Party. But I will go wider. Do you think that there is any political party or any political person out there who might bring us back from basically mandating this universally? Is there anyone out there who might be able to slow it down, stop children being sort of gone for? What are your thoughts on that? I know it's a big question, but let's keep it as succinct as we can. Mel, you're probably the most politically, I was going to say historian, most politically experienced that we have among us by far. What are your thoughts on that?
I think at the moment, where it stands, the answer to your question, a big, long-winded one, is no. There is no one. And I
No
think
one.
no, but I think that is currently in Parliament, and that's where I think there is a massive gap, because people are looking for someone to make a stand politically, and there's no one at the moment. So who knows? Maybe smaller parties will rise up next election. I have no idea. But yeah, there's a lot of angry people, and at the moment, I don't see any political hope as it stands with reason right now.
All right, thank you for that. Petya, what do you think?
Well, like Jacinda said, in terms of the Labour Party, she said there's no endpoint to all of this, and so it feels like she's just kind of just pulling through. She's just busting through. In terms of like what Mel was saying, in terms of a party or political party that's that's going to really be beneficial for the nation. I don't see anyone. At first instance, I thought Christopher Luxon would kind of sound like he'd had some good points, but in terms of mandates, he was still pushing for the mandates and say, oh, okay, that kind of leaves him out. And so right now there is it seems quite dim. It seems like gloom and doom right now. And so I don't know if there's anyone out there who is going to pull their, going to stand in the gap and say, hey, I'm here to do something for our nation. So right now I guess I'm not really hopeful for it at this moment, to be honest.
No, cheers for that. Thank you. Liao, what are your thoughts?
So I think that the only way we can do this is to unite again the smaller parties and to bring together and putting aside egos and actually form a strong, and it has to start now. You can't wait until next year. People have already sort of lost hope as it is right now. So come together and go, we're going to have a united front and we're going to take it from here. Thank you very much. And start to speak out, not to be afraid. You talk about Chris Luxon, who made one of his MPs take back a post because she was at a Voices for Freedom. This is not opposition. I'm sorry. We actually need a whole group of people who are going to stand together and go, okay, this is enough. Enough of our children, enough of our elderly, enough of this euthanasia. This is where it needs to be. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, thank you for that. Wonderful. Steve?
Yeah, I think we need, honestly, like back, I touched on this last time, but yeah, we need the parties to unite, and the power of the people, and different lawsuits that are going on against mandates and that are going to have an effect, hopefully, right? But the power of the people is huge, and we like Leon was saying about uniting the minor parties. Man, we're desperate. We're absolutely beyond desperate to have a legitimate team for the people, and we can't dance around the edges. We can't do this. I might drop a couple of likes on this topic. You got to just go up the guts, because I tell you, I wish you guys could see the amount of support that we've had just over this issue around the spine. Everyone's losing their mind, like we're doing something that's so epic. It's not epic, man. We're just saying it's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's nothing compared with what our forefathers did, was bled out, 16, 17-year-old kids screaming in agony, being disemboweled on beaches, so we could sit here and suck on, flat whites and say it's all too hard. People are just throwing their freedoms away for a short-term comfort. And I tell you what, this is throwing the future away. I'll take the hard road right now and give my kids a future any day of the week. And people just think that we're going back to normal. And I think there is this 5-year-olds, this rollout of this booster shot, it was 2 and done. That was the promise, right? There hasn't been a promise fulfilled since this woman opened her mouth. Everything she said has been a lie. Everything. She hasn't floated one economic policy that's going to get us out of this hole. You can't ask her a question. We are absolutely being ruled by dictatorship right now, and we need somebody to stand up. We're desperate, man, because we haven't got anyone. You can't ask for National. National are just as bad. National is just as deep in Chinese money as Labour. You know what I mean? So, you know, honestly, where do we go? But the people are really, like you said, you know, even myself, I'll be honest, man. Before Christmas, it was cute. I couldn't go into a cafe, and that now it's really starting to piss me off. I can't take my kids to places. You know, what do I know? You know, what am I so unclean? You know, you guys even look at the data. You guys can still spread the stuff, man. What are you guys? I don't know what these guys are taking, honestly. Like, they're just not speaking, you know, they're just not making sense. Honestly, the whole thing is getting old, and we need it. We need someone to stand up.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, awesome. Just Preet, what are your thoughts?
I mean, as parents, we always err on the side of caution. And for us, for most parents, this would be the hill they're prepared to die upon. But
Yeah.
looking at the politics, I honestly don't see, everyone else here has pointed out, between National and Labour, there's really not much to choose. But I wonder how many saw David Seymour's post on 1st of January. He had 1,600 comments, and I counted over 1,000 of them will speak up against the mandates. I'd say he's lost a lot of his supporters that day, because that's a pretend libertarian here who does just a couple of things. He makes noises and he puts up memes, and his noises are just that, noises, nothing more. So it's time, I think, to realize that it is our job. This is it. Nobody at this point, if we keep looking for, some mythical figure, somebody, the science is there, the data is there. And our children, experimenting on children, and the ethics of now saying that children need to protect the community. What have we come to as a society? It was our job to protect them, not their job to protect the community. This is just ethically, morally so wrong. But you have people like, I think he's changed his name. He calls himself Christopher Bishop, Christopher Boosted Bishop, I think.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So Chris
Yeah,
Bishop is put in a middle name now. And people should be standing outside the places of, the houses of these people and just literally indicting them. It is not a time for silence anymore. They are not playing nice. The gloves need to come off. If not this, if you will not stand up for your kids, what else would you stand for? My biggest job as a mom, as a parent, is to be my kids' advocates. At 4 and 7, they are not, even 10 years from now, to think that 14 and 17-year-olds could have done this, where they're still age 16, you needed parental permission to get your ears pierced.
Right.
Somebody speak up against the insanity of what this is, and it'll have to be us. It'll have to be us. I think Dr. Peter McCulloch said it last year. It'll have to come down to the parents. He said, the mums especially. We are here.
Yep. Yes, I absolutely agree. I think, man, all of you guys just, each of you actually had a bit of a political, powerful speech there. All of you, hey? Sheesh. Maybe something's in the gear there. And I have even said, look, there's too many comments. I can't actually flick over to them now. But there we go. Here's one. Hey. Oh, hello. The five of you. Hey, nice. But you're absolutely right. You guys are absolutely right. And I think that this is actually it's very odd. This is the most peaceful, yet at the same time most dangerous time to be a child in the history of Western civilization. Oddly enough, because of course, we've got the most brutal abortion laws, which now allow you to be aborted to kill a baby up to and including birth. And if the babies actually make it up to birth, then they're immediately perverted, because you've got the race-based CRT, which is the Hurihanga Nui going on, where you are categorised as either Māori, Tauiwi, or Pākehā, and then that line's in there. And on top of that, now, of course, you've got the gender ideology, basically saying that from 5 years old, you're being told, nada, you're not a boy or a girl, but you're anywhere in between and a sliding scale. And on top of that, and all this obviously since the time of 2017, since Ms. Ardern popped in. And on top of that, now, of course, we're saying, get vaxxed. And you've got that fear fermented, and children who are developing humans, they are not adults, yet this government seems to think that they are little adults, is actually going to gun straight for their minds and hearts and souls. It's horrible. And just, Pete, I think you brought a really, really great point there, that it is the parents who are going to have to step up. And one of the great things I've seen is that the parents over in the US especially have started standing up against the racism aspect, the CRT, the idea that if you're black, you're inherently oppressed, and if you're white, you are the oppressor. And I love the fact that it's also been led by a lot of black people. They are fiercely opposed to the segregation going on there. I think we're going to see a backlash here. So I'm really hoping that the parents here, you're right, if Steve brought up, actually all of you have brought it up, that if the parents don't stand up for their kids, then they're not going to stand up for anything. I think it does. We go back to the heroes, the martyrs, the Christian martyrs who were in the times of Nazi Germany, who chose death rather than having the children be walked over to Auschwitz and similar areas. Okay, right. So that's where you stand. What do we do? So I know that all of you are part of organisations, and I am going to see if I can grab another round robin here. What do we do? What is it that parents can do? What is it that people in New Zealand can do? Even if they're not parents, a lot of the people who don't have kids absolutely defend the idea, or they can reject the idea of the government gunning for the children. They are aware of that legacy aspect. Steve, you look quite animated there. I'm going to start with you there. What can the people do? What can we do?
We just got to say no. That's it. We just don't comply. Don't wear a mask. We're in the middle of summer. We're all healthy. What are we doing? Wearing masks around, playing dress-ups? We're grown adults. You know what I mean? Like, we don't wear a mask. Don't support businesses that are going around, check your papers. Like obviously, you're a crap human being if you're rejecting people on some image on the iPhone. You know what I mean? Honestly. You got to check yourselves. I drove past the church this morning. This is a true story. Drove past the church this morning, and I just felt sad, man. I saw the guy checking their vaccine passport on the door, just out the back of Henderson here. What? So someone goes in there that's desperate. He's a sinner, but hey, he's not vaxxed. Sorry, mate. No Jesus today. Come back next week. You know what I mean? Unbelievable. What are we doing, mate? These guys, these social justice warriors, been making all this noise, jumping up and down. Don't discriminate against minorities. Don't bully, anti-bullying and all that. They're the same ones trying to force a needle in my 5-year-old kid. Same person. We just got to say no. We just got to say we're not doing it. I'm going to pull my kids out, bro. I'm pulling my kids out. You know what I mean? I'm pulling my kids out of school. I'm just absolutely over it, and I'm just not risking them. I'm not risking my kids for nothing. That's it. That's the bottom line. You take, adults, whatever, everyone's got a choice, but you kids, it's getting serious.
Well said. Jeez. Yeah. Subtle, very subtle. Just Bleat, you also look like you were wanting to jump in all over the place.
I love the kids. They were making faces in the background. And I had a hard time keeping Hello? Yeah. Look, we have 120 MPs in the country. In front of how many MPs' residences have people actually protested? I know people go to governors' places and so on. How many MPs, I have locally, my mayor is probably Pfizer's biggest salesperson. He's just recently printed in this, today's Sunday, right? Yesterday, Saturday's paper. And the paper ended with that unvaccinated Southlanders are hell-bent on committing suicide. Time to roll up your sleeves. And I'm like, Gary Tong, what's going on here?
Wow.
This sort of brazen, expression in mainstream media, this is in the Southland Times, needs to be pushed back on hard and fast. And we have, to a large extent, we become desensitized, like you were speaking about, how they've been making, Steve, children as, social justice warriors. We made them climate justice warriors. We made them anything that on the agenda was vegans, meatless Mondays, and, gay rights and so on. Everything is fine, but nothing was age appropriate. When they started teaching our kids at age 8 about, gender and sexuality and everything, and parents had to start asking questions at that time, that what's happening? Mm-hmm. Why are we suddenly, labeling kids, putting them in different little boxes? This is where you fit and this is where you fit, instead of just letting them be kids? When the media, for the first time, it started putting up this divisive narrative, someone needed to have asked questions, but we didn't, to a large, there was a very small minority and they were not heard. And today, the chickens are coming home to roost for many people, because the media didn't become like this overnight. Hitler didn't rule overnight. He didn't come in by force. Those are small incremental steps towards tyranny, and they happen step by step. Each time when we just choose to, that doesn't affect me.
Mm.
Well, it's just one small thing. My daughter has never been to school ever. She turned 5 during the first lockdown in 2020, and I looked around a couple of months and I'm like, no, mate, you're not going. And so somewhere I'm privileged as a farmer, we are able to stay home, and I realize not everyone is in that position. But at this point, there should be parents who should be actually, questioning your school boards, principals, that is my child seriously safe there? Can you give me an undertaking that this vaccination won't be happening? Those sort of actions, we should be confronting those people, because the time to play nicely is well and truly over.
Mm.
Your 5 to 11-year-olds, I think, was it late last year, because my children don't go to school, I miss their terms and all. But late last year, when they bought these passports in, there are parents who have now agreed that their child will stay 8 hours a day on a school premise where they are not allowed to enter. They're only allowed to pick up and drop off.
That's right.
Now,
Yes.
even if I drop my child off at the birthday party, I linger on for 10 minutes to see, what sort of atmosphere is there. Am I all right with everyone there before I leave her there and come back and pick her up? Well, that's maybe just me as a protective mom. How have we come to the stage where it's all right to leave your child for 30 hours, 35 hours a week, underage minors, at a place where you're not allowed? This is wrong. This makes no sense. We wouldn't do it if it was not school. So what makes it all right if it's school?
Well said. Definitely. Well said. Liao.
So just like Jaspreet was saying, the gloves are off, and the World Health Organization have put out about implied consent. So I think I've mentioned it maybe before in another one, but that means if your child is at school, I'll just read a little bit of it so you understand. Subsequently, the physical presence of the child or adolescent, with or without an accompanying parent at a vaccination session, is considered to imply consent. So when your child is in school, they are part of the school. So this is what we're talking about. This is them saying that. So that comes back from the World Health Organization. So you have to actually opt out. You have to opt your children out. And if parents are very busy and they're working and they're not thinking about these things, this is just something you just automatically take your children, and don't realize that implied consent will be part of this process. So like the others before, writing a letter to the board of trustees of the school, and asking them for clarification of what their policies and plans are of any Pfizer vaccine rollout for the students from 5 to 11, and confirmation that the consent from parents are what you are wanting, so that you have control of what is going to be done to your child. So just like this people saying now with COVID and what they can use, you literally just have to take your child off and then pick them back up, and you don't know what's happened in those 8 hours. So implied consent is a very important part that you actually need to go to your school and ask for them. Yeah, so if you just look up the World Health Organization, they've got and look up consideration regarding consent and vaccinating children and adolescents between 5 and 17. So if you just look that up on the website, you'll be able to find it there. So they will be using that, and so it would be good for you to address that with your school. That's what I think would be good for us to be able to at least push back and understand what are they allowed to do and not allowed to do at school.
Well said. Well said. All right, Petya, what do you think? What can we do?
Yeah, I'm just reminded of that saying. What's that saying from Joseph Goebbels? That you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes truth, and that's the law of propaganda. It's attributed to Joseph Goebbels, and psychologists know this. They know this. This is they call it the illusion of truth effect, and this is just an illusion. It's a lie. And the more we tarry on and adhere to the lie, the more damage is going to happen. And so it's going to, in terms of our nation. And we were talking about our kids. But what I believe as a nation and as a devout believer, the passage of Romans chapter 13, verse 1 and to 7, and that's a big one. And people have been talking about it. I've been hearing it around different churches. People have been talking about it, and people are saying we need to subjugate ourselves to the authorities. We need to we're subject to the authority of the land and so forth. And it's taken out of context. But the thing is, the Bible says there's a Greek word that says hupotasphai. Hupotasphai means in terms of subject. It doesn't mean to freely obey or freely free obedience. But it means this: to submit to a divinely established order. And if you look around at our nation now and in our government right now, we as believers, we don't have to subject to ourselves to they're not a divinely. It eliminates them. They're not a divinely established organization. It's not talking about the institutional or secular institutional government. It's talking about being people who are in the authority of believers. And so I'm looking at the churches right now. People have been asking me, where are the churches? Where are the people who say this and that and about God, who say God is a righteous God and love? Where are the churches? And I've seen a lot of people put up pages on Facebook about the churches doing this and that. But it's good, that's awesome. But I think what's missing is the feet. And people need to start, like you're saying, people need to say, hey, that's enough. Enough is enough. We need to stand up for our kids. We need to talk to everyone about this. We need to be intentional about our conversations with people, ask the hard questions, and tell them this is what it is. This is what I believe. And and dust our feet, dust our shoes. If they don't like it, then just dust our feet and go and move on to the next people. But the more of us who are spreading the word and saying, hey, this is wrong. This is not right. This is not right. This is not righteous. We need more people out there to start having these conversations to everyone and anyone. I know it's as hard as it can be, but we need to do it for the sake of our nation, but also for the sake of our kids. Because if no one's going to do it, then we are in for a very hard time in terms of New Zealand and Aotearoa. And so I believe that we need to, like you're saying, everyone's saying here, we need to stand up. There needs to be more action. There needs to be more intentional conversations with our families as well, and talking to our kids as well about this. If we're going to see any shift, and if they've forced this narrative on us, let's force a change on them. Let's ask the hard questions on them and force it on them for change. And so that's where I believe that maybe that's a start that could happen for us as a people and as a nation.
Awesome, well said, Mel. If you could finish that one off, and Mel, I also want to pick your brain as well. I want you to know what can we do, but also there's a comment that's repeating in the comment section about Matt King in Northland, and how that's been going. I know that you're in Northland. What are your thoughts about Matt King in Northland? I know that some of us have different thoughts, but I'll be honest, I like him. But what are your thoughts there?
Well, we were sort of rivals when I campaigned, and I campaigned against each other for a few elections. And saying that, he always shows respect. He really, really does. He's a really neat guy. He's getting behind the Defence Force and the police, and starting a group to advocate for them, which I guess goes hand in hand with what I was going to say about what can you do. First of all, do not believe the government narrative that you are a minority, that you are on your own. That is absolute lies. There are people everywhere. There are big groups. There are groups that just look out for it. There's Voices for Freedom. There's information everywhere, tons and tons of groups. You are not alone. Don't be afraid to speak up. There are teachers that are fighting back, the NZTSOS. We did an interview with a couple of people from there. They're fighting back. The councillors are fighting back. The police are fighting back. People are fighting back. And once you gain traction, you need to keep it up, keep the momentum. So there's a picture floating around, a meme floating around Facebook at the moment, and it's got one guy with a whip and a whole pile, a big crowd, people may have seen this, and there's one guy standing up to the guy in the whip. Everyone else is bowing. And then suddenly a few more stand up, and the guy's still got the whip, and the rest are bowing. And suddenly all the crowd stand up, and the guy with the whip bows down. So feel, you're not disempowered. Find a group, get connected, and you're not alone. And yeah, big ups to Matt. He's doing awesome work.
Yep, well said. Well said. Guys, one of the things that I noticed in all of that is there is actually a little bit of pain attached underneath there, and I think that's utterly powerful stuff. And I think that's also what we've seen out there, is that there's a lot of people who are losing hope, and they're getting absolutely ferocious. But I think this is probably the year of activism, of ferociousness. What we have to watch out for, I think, is that spilling over into what possibly the government wants, which is that ability to utilize another person's violence to justify authoritarianism on their own behalf. So I think that's definitely something which we need to be aware of, and if we can discuss it in safe environments like this, then I think we'll be okay. Guys, I want to just we've gone past by about a quarter of an hour. It's been real powerful, but I do want to have one last round robin. And look, there's a whole lot of comments in those sections, guys. Thank you so much for all of those who are in there. I have to say that there are absolutely, the people there are absolutely supporting all five of you. They're absolutely really happy that you're doing this, and I get it. And you're absolutely right. There's Voice for Freedom, Freedom Rights Coalition, there's United We Stand, there's Talanoa Sa'o, there's Mad Messenger, Mandate. The fact is that there are groups out there who are standing up and fighting back. And as they become more stronger within the community, that's how we can effect that change. And I will say, Mel's absolutely right. Don't believe, it's an utter lie to when they say, oh, look, 97% are more than happy to take the jab. Right? Even those who have taken the jab, many of them do not want to have taken it. They've accepted the coercion. All right, so don't worry about thinking that you're alone. You're not. So that's I guess one to remind. But I do want to have a round robin, a last thought, something to give to the people who are out there, and just so that we can finish off nice and strong. But just one thing that you can think of, just to give the people out there who are watching, and the people that we'll discuss with later on. And I do want to round robin. I'm going to go round the other way. Mel, what is the last thing that you would want to give to our people out there?
I guess if people have some really powerful stuff that they want to share, or they want to share anything with us with the Daily Examiner, please just send in an article or whatever you want to say, just to admin@thedailyexaminer.co.nz, because we're interested in your stories. So have you say.
Oh,
and
awesome.
write to the MPs. Don't think it's a waste. Write to them. Keep writing.
Yep. Well said. Petya, what's the last thing that you can think of?
Just want to say, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. The more of us that push back, the more of us that are vocal, the more of us that are courageous in terms of having these conversations, and the more of us that stand up towards this this government. Don't lose hope. There's always hope, and I believe that. And if we are able to push through and help one another, especially during this crazy time, I really believe that we can do something that's positive, and something that's going to really help our nation. So don't lose hope. Aotearoa.
Awesome. Well said. Liao.
I'm going to leave my favorite quote, and it's there are two most important days of your life: the day you were born and the day you found out why. Okay, this is our why as parents. This is going to be our why. And as we strengthen our backbones, we are going to do the same for our children. And I just want to quickly say that my three boys have started their own group. You might have seen it floating around. It's called the Tilsley Boys, all three of my teenagers. And they've started a group. They've got they're buzzing because they've got 350 people as from yesterday. Today.
Awesome.
So they want to help support other teams, and this is where it starts with us. It really does. And then you can give hope to the next generation. Bless you guys.
Well said. Steve.
Yeah, just want to give some encouragement. I wish you guys could see. I thought we were in the minority. We go into rallies and I thought, oh, we are, we see what's the media is saying about us, but just the overwhelming support we've had has just been beyond, 100 times beyond what I thought was out there. It's just been so motivating and just such a, just really blessing. But I just want to say, what an army we have in the body of Christ in New Zealand. What a network. There's a church on every street corner. I mean, everyone else is rallying around with, schoolyard networks, and the church is just such a monster that if they actually really united, and then I'm saying it in a spirit of love. I'm not trying to, drop the hammer on anyone. I'm not perfect, but we've just got such a untapped resource there as far as the church, just to unite behind truth. I mean, the church is, loving our neighbor has got to be more than a food parcel on a Sunday. Surely, if our neighbor is losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods, killing themselves over not being able to support their families, surely we have to stand up, and we've got to stand in the gap. Surely we have to speak for truth and for honesty. We've got to be honest. And I just want to put a challenge out there to the church, man. Please, you guys, let's really just behind. Doesn't have to be anything flash, just basic human rights. It's our kids. It's our kids, guys. It's our 5-year-old babies that are the ones in the firing line. If we can't stand up to this, I fear that there's going to be a lot of good people in the future that are going to have a very hard time with their conscience.
Awesome. Well said. Thank you so much. Just Preet.
Do not believe the media. I met somebody yesterday, and the person passed me, and I was standing with a sign that said "First to no harm." And the lady came up to me and she said, "I'm fully vaccinated." I said, "I stand for freedom of choice." And she told me, she says, "I'm due for my booster, and I've never been well since my past 2." She said, "Thank you for what you're doing." So the ones that have had it are also regretting it. They have been forced into it. They've been coerced into it. Stand up for your fellow Kiwis. And this is one battle we cannot afford to lose. Be it someone like me who just stands with a sign, "Kids myocarditis data here," and I have printouts of the slides, and I just hand them over to whosoever passes by, or doing a mailbox drop around your neighborhood. Just whatever it takes. Every small action counts. Please speak up.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. So that's us. Look, thank you so much for joining in. I want to thank every single one of the panelists here. You are each fighters in your own community setting. I've seen every one of you guys fighting in your community setting. It's an absolute honor to be able to be amongst you, to be a little rectangle here with you. So thank you so much on behalf of everyone who's out there, and for our audience, thank you so much for being in. We also want to give up our prayers, our thoughts, and, if we can get a chance, our money to the people of Tonga and also to the people of Northland who are facing off not just Cyclone Cody, but also the volcano that has smashed up its nearly 300-kilometer radius eruption. So we really hope that the ash is going to come down soon, but you are in our thoughts, you're in our hearts and our prayers. And we want to make sure, if you can, open up some wallets and get some money out to them. But for those of you who are starting tomorrow, we've got your back, all right? These 5 people here are each fighters into their community, all right? And these organizations are getting stronger. You put in, this is absolutely a fight that we can win. So in the meantime, God bless you. God bless you, New Zealand.